What happens when AI stops waiting for humans to check its work and starts checking itself? It sounds like science fiction, but it's happening right now. And the implications are so profound that researchers are calling it the biggest shift in AI development since the Transformer architecture. We're not just talking about AI that can write code or generate images anymore. We're talking about AI that can evaluate its own outputs, identify its own mistakes, and iteratively improve without human intervention. This is the moment everything changes. Let me show you why. What is AI self-testing? First, let's understand what we mean by self-testing. In traditional AI development, the process looks like this. Train the model. Run tests. Humans evaluate the results. Adjust parameters. Repeat. It's slow, expensive, and limited by human bandwidth. But self-testing AI, completely different game. These systems use what's called constitutional AI or self-critique mechanisms. Here's how it works. The AI generates an output, let's say a piece of code, but instead of sending it to a human for review, it immediately switches roles and becomes its own critic. It asks itself, does this code have security vulnerabilities? Is it efficient? Does it handle edge cases? Then it generates a revised version. Then it critiques that version. And it repeats this process multiple times before ever showing a human the final result. Think of it like having a writer, an editor, and a fact checker all in one brain, constantly arguing with each other to produce the best possible outcome. OpenAI's latest models do this. Anthropic's Claude does this. Google's Gemini does this. It's becoming the standard, not the exception. But here's where it gets wild. Some AI systems are now testing themselves on benchmarks that they designed. They're not just checking their answers against human-made tests, they're creating their own evaluation criteria. And that's when researchers started asking a very uncomfortable question. If AI can test itself, evaluate itself, and improve itself, what exactly do humans contribute to the loop? The answer is more complex than you think. Why this changes everything. Let's talk about why self-testing AI is genuinely revolutionary. First, speed. Traditional AI development cycles take months. You train a model, run evaluations, analyze results, make adjustments, retrain. Each iteration requires massive compute resources and human oversight. Self-testing I can run hundreds of iterations in the time it would take humans to complete one. We're talking about development cycles measured in hours instead of months. The acceleration is exponential. Second, scale. Humans can only evaluate so many outputs. Even with teams of testers, there's a bottleneck. Self-testing AI doesn't have that limitation. It can evaluate millions of variations, exploring solution spaces that humans would never have time to consider. Google's AlphaCode 2 uses this approach. It generates thousands of potential solutions to programming problems, tests each one against edge cases it creates, then selects the best. It's now competitive with human programmers at the 85th percentile. Not because it's smarter, because it can test more possibilities faster. Third, novel capabilities. Here's where it gets philosophical. When AI tests itself, it sometimes discovers abilities we didn't know it had. Researchers call these emergent capabilities. For example, GPT-4 taught itself to use tools and APIs by testing different approaches to problem solving. Nobody explicitly programmed that. The self-testing loop revealed it. Meta's Cicero AI, designed for diplomacy and the game diplomacy, developed negotiation strategies through self-play that human experts had never considered. It tested millions of scenarios against itself until it found approaches that worked. But here's the big one: reliability. Self-testing dramatically reduces errors. When AI checks its own work multiple times before presenting it, the quality shoots up. Medical diagnosis. AIs using self-verification are showing accuracy rates that rival specialist doctors. Legal AI is catching contract errors that human lawyers miss. We're entering a phase where AI outputs might actually be more reliable than human work for certain tasks. And that has massive implications for how we structure work expertise, and trust. The risks and the future. Now for the uncomfortable part. Because self-testing AI isn't all upside, the AI safety community is genuinely concerned about something called recursive self-improvement. If an AI can test and improve itself, and each improved version is better at testing and improving itself, where does that end? Stuart Russell, AI safety researcher at Berkeley, puts it bluntly. An AI that can reliably improve itself is one step away from an AI we can't control. There's also the alignment problem. If AI is testing itself against criteria, IT determines how do we ensure those criteria align with human values? Who checks the checker? And let's be honest about the economic impact. If AI can evaluate, revise, and improve its own work, entire categories of jobs that involve quality control, testing, and review are at risk. We're not talking about decades from now. We're talking about the next few years, but here's my take. Self-testing AI is inevitable. The capabilities are too valuable, the competitive pressure too intense. Companies that deploy self-testing AI will outpace those that don't by orders of magnitude. What we can control is how we govern it. Right now, we need transparency requirements. Companies must disclose when AI is self-testing and by what criteria. Human oversight at critical decision points, especially in high-stakes domains like medicine, law, and infrastructure. Robust alignment research, ensuring self-testing loops optimize for outcomes we actually want. And public education, because most people have no idea this is already happening. The era of AI testing itself is here. We can't put this genie back in the bottle, but we can decide how we live with it. Outro. So that's the reality we're in. AI systems that evaluate themselves, improve themselves, and increasingly trust themselves more than they trust us. It's exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. And whether you're excited or concerned, one thing is clear. The relationship between humans and AI just fundamentally shifted. Here's my question for you. Would you trust an AI's self-evaluation over a human expert's opinion? In what scenarios? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where people land on this. If this video made you think differently about AI, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of these developments, because they're coming fast. And remember, the future isn't something that happens to us, it's something we build. So let's build it wisely. See you in the next one.